Connecting, perfect. Oops. Let's see. I think I added everyone. More people joining. Hi, good evening, everyone.
Great evening.
Thank you all for joining. Sorry, I'm like everyone's flooding in right now, which is a good sign.
Yo.
Awesome.
Jade, now I know you like a partner of mine I went to college with. Just like him. I was like, is that Muhammad? I was like, oh no, that's somebody else.
Give me one moment.
Nah. Nope, not at all, man. Not at all.
You still fly anyway, though, man. You don't have to be that guy.
Yeah. How you doing, Larry? You ready, man? You ready?
Man, I am excited, man. We're gonna have some fun tonight.
Nice.
Wonderful.
I don't know, man. Is my lighting, is it really bad? Am I dark on for you guys to see me? Or I had changed my lights just like literally before this meeting, and it's like these halogen things. So I don't know how light or dark I am coming in. My head is shining, but
yeah, your head is shining. We can see you just a little dark. That's all. It's all good.
Well, you look at my presentation anyway, so that's the focus.
Awesome. Well, it looks like there's still more people joining. I wanted to say everyone welcome that was here right at the start. We're gonna get started in about 10 minutes just to allow more people to jump in, and then we'll go ahead and do introductions. For those who don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Cotton. I'm the executive director of Black Tech Link. And again, thank you all for joining. And maybe as a kind of like warm up, why doesn't everyone throw like their LinkedIn in the chat, as well as like where they're tuning in from tonight? Awesome, and I will start. Perfect. Goodness. I feel like I should have upgraded like the account or something, because all these people are joining, which is a very good sign. I'm really excited for tonight. Let's see. Perfect. Oh, I see some people from New York. Wow, with the late night training. Okay. Okay. Well, we hope it's interactive and exciting for you to, keep you awake. Microservices is a fun topic, right, Larry?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. Let's see who's in the chat. Awesome. See some people I know. I see. Hi, Christiana. Hi, Helene. I also see Dina from iUrban team joined. Good to see you. John Melanson. Nice. Makai. Hello, hello. See Rochelle Lakey. Wonderful. Jayton. Hello. David Resilient. How are you doing? Good to see you.
I am good. Good to see you too.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to give it a few minutes for everyone that just joined. Please throw your LinkedIn profile in the chat so everyone can connect, as well as where you guys are all tuning in from tonight. Ooh. So I see a lot of people joining. Happy Veterans Day, everyone, by the way. Happy Veterans. Is there any veterans in the house? Yes. Here we go. Good to see that. Wonderful. Okay. Wish I had some like background music, some elevator music
I
background.
thought about that too. You should like play some hip hop or something as we're getting started out. So
Next time,
next
I'll
time.
remember that. I'll just play it from my iPhone. Great. Ooh. Okay, so I'll give it about 5 more minutes. Let's see. Nice. See a lot of people from San Diego. Good to see. Oh, someone from New Orleans. Did I say that right? New Orleans.
Nolan's.
Wow, there we go. Orleans. I'm trying to get that draw going.
You should watch Treme if you want to learn the language of the land.
Oh, okay.
It's really good too.
Nice. See someone from Memphis. Hello, hello. Okay, Kadar from Redlands. Hey, I'm sorry, I live in Moreno Valley. Redlands is just a stone's throw away. Awesome. Okay. See Pittsburgh, Minnesota. So we have a good range of people, which I like to see all across from the US. Very, very nice. Huh. All right, so what I'm going to do, so a lot of you may be new to Black Tech Link. I'm going to go ahead and throw our meetup in the page. This is our acting website right now. Until our website is built, it should be done next week, so check back. I'll definitely send out more information about, our website and how you can learn more about the work that we do and some of the services that we provide as well. But if anyone wants to connect with me, please feel free to like hit me up through our meetup page. Meanwhile, okay. Let's see. Goodness. Okay. All right. Well, I'll just add more people as they join and we'll just go ahead and begin. Again, everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Elizabeth Cotton. I'm the executive director of Black Tech Link. We're a 501c3 nonprofit which launched this year. So our mission is to focus on the economic development of Black communities. We mainly focus on Southern California, but with everything happening virtually, as we see, like we're definitely impacting communities all across the US. And so we focus on the economic development of Black communities, and we do this through tech education, workforce solutions, and networking opportunities. A big component of what we're looking to do in the future is to provide staffing for job seekers, as well as technical training as well. So one of the programs that I wanted to launch going into 2021 was our monthly one-on-one workshop. And basically what this is, it's a fundamental workshop for people at different levels in their career, like different levels as far as like knowledge of tech. But as a lot of tech is like ever changing, we wanted to consistently provide like one-on-one workshops to debut like the latest technologies. I know some people may not know of some of like the latest resources and tools that people can use in tech as well as business. And so every month we're looking to do a one-on-one workshop. So we're kicking off this series with Larry Johnson. He's a software developer from Cambridge Mobile Telematics. They're mobile IoT company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they've been great this year. And so we're working with them to provide a lot of programming. And we're also working with an organization that's based in Los Angeles. That's kind of like, a partnering org that we worked with in the past, Blacks United in Leading Technology. The president of the LA chapter is also on. I thought I saw you, John Melanson. I don't know if you want to, there we go. Good to see you, John. And thank you so much also for being a partner tonight and promoting this. You know, as we're growing in Southern California, I like to also like partner with other orgs, which is always great. And so tonight we're kicking off our series with Microservices 101. In January, we will be doing a SaaS Sales 101, so Software as a Service Sales 101. So if anyone is interested in that, they can tune in January for that. And so like, I know if you guys have more questions, just throw it in the chat. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask if everyone can just be on mute as the speaker, Larry, is providing his presentation tonight. If you have questions, please throw them in the chat, and I will just kind of work with Larry, regarding the questions you may have. If you guys need to tell more about the questions that you have, at that point, I will take you off chat so you can ask your question directly. But again, thank you so much for everyone that's joined. And I will give the floor to Larry.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Larry Johnson. First, shout out to my East Coast people. It is 9:00 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, and you're here in this meeting. So thank you guys for hanging out. I mean, seriously, because you could be doing something else tonight, but you're here with us hanging out. Let's have some fun. Hopefully you learn something new. For sure, ask questions as we go. We'll kind of go from there. I guess about myself, I live in Dallas, Texas. Been here about 13 years now. Hometown is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Shout out to the Steelers. For this year, we're gonna leave it at that. But we'll see what happens for the rest of the season. But I want you guys to know the stock that I come from Pittsburgh, Steel City. I guess about myself too, specifically, currently work at Cambridge Mobile Telematics, or CMT. Been here about 2 years now. Started out actually in a role called a sales engineer. The first year I was here, where I would travel around the country, pitch large companies, design, develop like on-the-fly solutions, and showing folks our capabilities. Then the last year, I guess, or 11 months, I moved to the engineering side. I'm currently on a team called Trip Processing, so we do a lot of work with AWS, Python, and Postgres for backend. I do some front end too a little bit, and occasionally do some like Hadoop or some data engineering work when it's needed. You guys might not know about what CMT is. Like you hear the word telematics, but you have no idea what it really means. Telematics is really about looking at how things move and measuring the motion of like vehicles and other objects, and finding out like if folks are driving decent or not so decent. And we have solutions to help provide more safe roads. So we have like IoT devices, solutions in the cloud. We also have mobile solutions as well. We serve like a lot of different business verticals, but mainly we serve insurance, property and casualty, ride share, as well as fleet management. Just a quick plug, CMT is hiring. Always looking for talented, motivated people, all the way from product managers to data scientists or any other types of roles. And I've asked Elizabeth to post in the chat a link to our site so that you guys can look at it. And if you want to peruse through it or ask me questions, send me, connect on LinkedIn to find more about who we are, and what we do, and what the culture is like. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to just one caveat, one housekeeping item. I was raised by Baptist grandparents, which means that we know how to have church, and we talk a lot. Now I got like 45 minutes today to chat, but I want to make this interactive. So please ask questions. We want to have fun. Listen, make it fun and engaging. It's 9:00 p.m. on the East Coast, so I don't want to bore you guys with me talking for the whole time. So again, please ask questions. The first thing I want to do, let me share my screen actually. Give me 1 second. Let me know if it shows Elizabeth. Can you see it? You said yes?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so I think Elizabeth is gonna set up a polling thing. I don't know how that works. I can't see the chat, so Elizabeth, you're gonna kind of have to help me out a little bit. So I want to kind of get an idea where people are at in terms of microservices. So I just have like 2 quick questions, and then we'll look at the results of the question. So the first question is, what is the definition of a microservice? And so please go ahead and start voting quickly, so we can get through these slides. Give you guys a few moments. All right, Elizabeth, can you tell? Oh, you can tell how many folks have voted. So we got 31. When we get to 80%, I'll chime in.
Yeah, we can give it about 15 more seconds. Okay.
All right, so the answer is E, none of the above. So most of you got it wrong, which is great. So we're gonna have a lot to learn today. And I'll, full disclosure, like, I mean, I've worked with microservices, didn't know I was in the past. And as I researched preparing for this presentation, I learned quite a bit. So I think, you guys' answers are not surprising to me, because if I was someone else listening to this presentation and I was in the audience, I would have answered the same way you guys did. So thank you for doing that. All right, second question. Okay. It is not the responsibility of software developers to master the domain of the software that models the business, but rather it is the responsibility of the product owner / manager and business subject matter experts or SMEs to do so. True or false? And the word master is in there for real. It's an important highlight.
Okay. So I just launched the poll and I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds.
Yeah, we've done good.
Okay.
I think we're there. So you guys got this one right, and we'll talk more about this. I think, like, I love to nerd out better than the next person, but you'll find that learning the business that you're in is very important. I mean, I've seen, code where we're like in like a financial services domain, and I'm seeing variables in code called cookie dough, like have nothing to do with the industry. People are impressed by that, but you'll find that the business is what's most important. And we'll explain why microservices is that synergy that makes developers and business folks communicate a little more effectively. All right. Okay, so our agenda for today, we're going to talk about microservices, strategic enablers, the things you have to do to really be more successful with microservices. We'll talk about what they are, break them down, and we'll do a couple of use cases, and then we'll talk about the more on the ground running, some of the operation enablers to make it possible. And then we'll have formal QA, but as we're going, like Elizabeth said, as we're going through each slide, put your questions in, and then she'll kind of field them to me, and we'll kind of go from there. And if I can't get to them, we'll kind of table them, but regardless, we'll answer your questions either tonight, or I'll answer them in electronic format later through email or something like that. But at any rate, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so, sorry, I'm too far. Okay. These are the strategic, how's it doing that? Sorry about that. I clicked too many times. Okay. What are the strategic enablers? Again, these are the things that help an organization to be ready for microservices. I think many times, unfortunately, in IT, somebody comes up with a great term, and then vendors, product developers come on with some product to push more software sales, and the business partner doesn't really understand what they're doing. I heard folks talk about, yeah, we're agile, and all they have is 15-minute scrum every day, that doesn't mean you're agile. And it's the same thing with microservices. Just because you think you're doing them, you may not be doing them properly. And again, you need the strategic enablers to make that happen. So the first thing is business scalability. And what I mean by that, a scalable business essentially has lots of customers, high retention rate, low customer acquisition costs, economies of scale. So as the company grows, ideally it should be cheaper to do business. Then ultimately, what you want to move towards is automation, requiring fewer people to do the job, to help you to save, for your expenses. And so, really, I'm teasing out one important thing is like, if you're having a startup, like microservices may not be the most important thing starting out. Like, and you'll see why as we go through this presentation. It complicates the software solutions that run your business. So, again, I'm not saying not to do it when you're starting out with something new, but ultimately, when you're in a startup mode, your job is to get out a product or service as fast as possible, and microservices will slow that down. So you're trying to go fast when you're getting started. You're trying to prove out, is this even a viable idea? So again, normally you want to already have a business that's running, and hopefully transitioning to microservices will help you, if you've done your architecture somewhat decent, transitioning to it shouldn't be too bad. The second enabler is domain-driven design. Full disclosure, I'm not an expert on DDD, but as we go through some of these tenets of it, and these tools you can use to be more effective doing it, it's kind of a no-brainer of why DDD is an important synergy for microservices. There are three aspects of it, three tools that help it to be implemented properly. Having what's called a bounded context. Bounded context essentially means, a contextual or semantic boundary, an explicit, almost like no scope creep on what you're actually building. So when you're talking about that service or that business functionality, everyone has a clear understanding of what's in scope and what's out of scope, in terms of the business processes and operations that it's modeling essentially. The second one is ubiquitous language, the practice of building up common, rigorous terms about what things are, and this is meaning the business and the user should use it using the same language. So we talk about a policy, if you're in insurance, well, what is a policy? Having a clear understanding of what that means between the users of the software and the actual developers is essential. And you kind of got to be a little anal retentive about it, so that you're all speaking the same language and on the same page. Because what happens a lot of times is tech goes off, builds something, comes back to the business, and they're like, I didn't ask for that. That happens all the time. So spending time up front and understanding your language of the domain is essential to being successful. And then the last part is context mapping. And that allows basically you to identify the relationships between bounded context, and also the teams that are responsible for them. This is kind of a critical thing we're going to talk about later, because many times when you're building functionality, you're building it like across, like you'll slice your function across multiple teams. And that actually is not the right thing to do, because making a change for one function or business requirement is very expensive when you have 10 teams working on it. You'll never get it done. Whereas you make changes to the software, it's hard to move fast when the business is changing. And then the third thing is continuous delivery, or CD. We're going to talk about CI/CD later, but this is specifically talking about continuous delivery as a strategic thing. If you ever read this book called The Phoenix Project, it talks about the 3 ways. And what it does is, one, helps us understand how to create fast flows of work as solutions move between development and into IT operations. Back in the day when I was coming up, you used to have separation of concerns. You had the people who developed the products and the people who supported them in production, which we know now that's not a great idea today. It was that way years ago because of, you have to have separation of concerns for compliance reasons. But today, we find that if you're not working on this solution from soup to nuts, it's very difficult for people to service something that they didn't write. So having that synergy between the product and IT and operations is critical. Shows us how to have a continuous feedback loop, fix quality at the source and avoid rework. Essentially, as you're developing things, you don't want to have telephone game about getting the solution out the door. Having customers constantly look at solutions like A/B testing, for example, and knowing what works and doesn't work versus spending 6, 12 months and millions of dollars on a project, you can get that faster feedback loop if you have an ability to put things out quickly and test with users. And then lastly, shows us how to create a culture that it fosters experimentation. Developers having time to do R&D to learn new technology is critical. If your team is always working on stuff and features and never innovating, you'll find that you're building a legacy system right now because you're not constantly innovating on it as technology and the needs of the business change. And the last thing, this is my turn. So you heard it here first. It's called All Stack Software Developers. So if you hear somebody steal my stuff, I said it first. What is an all stack developer? It is someone who has the ability to learn new things quickly. And they may be good at a few things, maybe a master at a few things, maybe a master at front end, master at back end, but has the ability to learn it all. I can tell you at CMT, there are obviously people on our team that know specific things more than others, but we have folks in our organization that can go across IoT, writing C code, C unit test cases. We got mobile apps in iOS, like C#, Objective-C and Kotlin, writing Android apps in Java. Folks are writing Python on the back end. And because sometimes you may want to do a different job or the requirements are different, or maybe there's a drive for the company to move in a different direction. So being an all-stack developer, being able to work on any technology, you may have your preferences, but you need to be pragmatic about software. Programming languages are nothing but tools. We don't think about them that way, but they are. So when people say this is the best language, there is no best language. It's all about what is the right tool for solving the problem. So there's another book you should read called Pragmatic Programmer. It's a classic. It talks about how to be a pragmatic thinker, not even just software, but in your life in general. One quick thing about all stack developers is that this is an HR issue. So I'm not saying you can't hire specialists or consultants to do something very specific. But if you're a full-time employee of an organization, you should be hiring people who are motivated, who don't mind learning new things and aren't stuck in their ways. So when you're trying to do microservices, the reason why sometimes organizations move slow is we're going to see you have to develop the whole stack, as a service, not just the front end, not the back end. You have to do it all. And we'll kind of show why that's important. Let me stop there. Are there any questions, Elizabeth, as I was going or talking, or?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. We'll start with Ayori. Hello, Ayori. Good to see you on the call. Let's see.
Hey there.
Ayori, did you want to ask your question directly? Since
Yeah, sure. I think what was the first question I asked? The first thing I was wondering is if you were going to, at all during your talk, if you were going to address how like shared event bus, Kafka bus technology is complementary or oppositional to a microservices strategy. And then the last question I had was around this concept of all stack developers. Specifically, how many languages do you need to know to be an all stack developer, and how is that different from being a full stack developer? Hey, Shauna.
Those are some good questions. What's your name, by the way? What's your name again?
Ayori. And just for background, I do product marketing for Heroku at Salesforce.
Nice. Ayori, you're still on my thunder, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn. That message bus, immutable messages, in my opinion, as I was studying this stuff, I was telling a buddy of mine, we never geeked out about it. But business orchestration, I think, is critical to microservices. And yes, we're going to talk about it. I think it's central. So whether it's Kafka, some other pub sub solution, shared, message queues, whatever it is, you have to have systems communicate to each other. Otherwise, there's no coordination, right? So if I have an order system and a purchase system, if I buy stuff, people got to pay for it, right? So if those aren't talking, those are completely separate systems and they have to talk to each other, but they should be totally separate microservices. So yes, we will talk about that. And I think it'll be teased out as we go. As far as languages, I think the answer is it depends. I encourage people, people know me, I'm a finance nerd as well. I look at, Pragmatic Programmer talks about this as well. Your technology skill set is like your portfolio, investment portfolio, right? There are some skills you have that pays the bills. Like I mostly in my career coded in Java. Java, no disrespect, is not the most fun language to write in, but it works very well, and a lot of organizations use it. And so I've done a lot of Java in my career, but I've always learned all kind of stuff, on the side. I've done some IoT things on the side. I've worked in mobile, but I've not been a mobile developer necessarily full time. So you have to, as a professional, have to stay up on your technology. And we'll talk about this a little bit too, in that we're being asked to do more. Back in the day, you used to have a business analyst. Man, you had a VA, a test analyst, you had a security analyst, you had a DBA, you had a developer, you had infrastructure. Now we're asked to do all that. And rightly so, because companies are trying to reduce expenses. So if you have one person to do the role of 8 people, that's technically cheaper in the long run. So there's a site I want you guys to go to. I think it's TIOBE.com. It's something called TO Index or something like that. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I look at this website all the time. It shows you all the top programming languages in the world and which ones are more favorable than others, and it shows more popular ones. I watch that all the time because right now I'm all about Python, but I'm always watching what languages are hot, which ones are not, because I need to retool because if something else is coming up, if R is going to be the new thing, or Rust or something else. I want to know about that ahead of time. So this website is always good to look at every 3 or 6 months to see what technologies are like the top ones. It's pretty much been like Java and C is like fighting for number 1 like every other year, for obvious reasons, right? Almost everything is written in C, and a lot of folks use Java. So did I answer your question, Iori, hopefully, clearly?
Yeah, so I have a question, Larry.
Okay.
So my question is,
by the way, what's your name?
My name is Henry. I'm a full stack developer at Mass Mutual.
Nice.
I've really been in this field like for about 9 years, so I really know a couple of languages.
Right.
So here's a question. So how really practical is being an all stack developer? I mean, one thing that I know about microservices is microservices really, like you said, do enable like a huge system to be broken down into chunks of services, and those services could have different stacks.
Right.
But well, the pattern that I tend to see is that developers that really know, let's say, .NET or C# tend to work on the C# stack of the microservice with the C# stack. And then the developers that know JavaScript tend to work on the microservice that is built in JavaScript. Sure. And then, like you said, the event bus is usually like the backbone for communication. So I'm trying to understand all stack because, like, from experience working with many languages, over like 15 languages, I've really I don't think that someone can be a master of all or even 10. I know that you can master 2 very, very well and be agile in others. Is that what you mean by
exactly.
all stack
Correct.
developer?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying master is like humanly impossible. I'm saying be a master of a few things, but be a jack of all trades essentially. Okay. A lot of us don't like. Let's be honest. A lot of us don't like the DevOps stuff. Let's be honest. It's not cool to write continuous integration scripts. It's not always fun, to write Docker containers and stuff like that. But we have to learn that stuff, and the industry is pushing us to do it. I'm not saying we're going to get there overnight, Henry, but we have to make strides to move toward that. Because I'm seeing some of these young people come out of school, and they are on fire. They know way more than a lot of us dinosaurs. I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I'm constantly having to keep up with new stuff. It's just the industry and where it's going. But I agree with you. Stay with what you know as your core, like that's your like core portfolio. But maybe you have to have some cryptocurrency on the outside and learn some new stuff, to help balance the portfolio of the future. So yeah, I'm not saying master everything, just master 1 or 2 languages maybe, right? And then but still learn other languages, right? Learn C++. Like in my job, I do learn C++. I haven't done it in years, but a lot of our code is written in C++ and C for these machine learning algorithms that were used many years ago. So I don't have
Yeah.
enough right now, but I need to be getting ready for that transition. So is
Yeah,
that
and
your question?
yes, and I think I would agree. I would agree with you on that. One other thing you get from at least working with multiple languages, even if not to an expert level, you get to cement the best patterns in
Absolutely.
programming.
Facts. Yep. Spot on, man. So hopefully that was clear. I'm, not trying to push my agenda, but I'm just, I just feel like it needs to be said. So thank you for the question. So I want to go to the next slide. Can maybe get to some other questions later, Elizabeth, and then we can kind of teeter them either for later or whatever. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna say what is a microservice, right? I'm gonna read it verbatim. Microservices, independently releasable services that are modeled around a particular business domain that can span across one or more layers of a 3-tier technology architecture. So I added that last part, 3-tier technology architecture. And what I mean by that is, the client, the middleware, and the database. And we'll see, it doesn't have to be all three, it can be one if that's what that service does. But it does encapsulate the UI all the way down to the persistence tier. And I want to be very explicit in saying that. If you don't, to me, are not doing that and you're owning a service, but you got 10 people working on it, microservices are not being done at your company correct. And it may be okay, but I'm just saying you're not really doing microservices properly. If you're spanning across, you got one guy doing the UI page, this guy's writing the web service, and they're on 3 different teams. Like, that's not okay. Within the team, you may have people who are good at certain things, but ideally all the people on the team should know the entire stack at some point. Characteristics of a microservice. Independently releasable from external application services and their database. So what does that mean? That's saying that I should be able to deploy my solution where it doesn't have to necessarily impact something else. Now, are there times where it happens, right? You have a business function or feature that does span multiple services. You can't 100% eliminate it. I just will stand by that. But if you can do it most of the time, it makes it easier. So as you make changes to very specific cohesive parts of your application architecture, it's easier to manage. It's basically breaking down your monoliths to identify all the nuts and bolts in your architecture into an actual artifact, like a binary executable compile. What else? Treat your inventory and manage your dependencies. And then lastly, make these components self-contained with its own definition of done. So those who know about Agile, it's DoD. We're talking about in the CI/CD pipeline. If it's an independently releasable piece of software, I can do it within that same vertical stack or service. Secondly, it hides internal implementation details and information about the service. This is actually really important because, like in object-oriented programming, we learned years ago about encapsulation, right? The method does something, has some specific behavior, but we don't know. We just know the interface. We know the function name. We know the inputs, and we get the outputs. We don't know what doesn't underneath the cover, except the function that it provides. It's the same thing with microservices, and this is where Henry, I feel like it helps you, an organization, to have different programming languages for that job. Now, I'm not saying you have every service is a completely different language. I'm not saying that because scalability for that is difficult. Somebody leaves the company and you wrote your application in Rust and nobody knows Rust. Well, now you got a problem on your hands. But doing this facilitates experimentation of new languages and new opportunities for technology in a very low risk way. When you make the implementation, encapsulated from everything else. And then you have to expose some kind of interface, right? A GUI, mobile, web, something else, APIs like web services or something, to system actors like humans and other services. And lastly, this part was hard for me. And I have seen this done one time actually. I worked on a project, but many times the database is shared. But a microservice is not a microservice if it's sharing its core persistence layer with other services. That's interesting because now you have to have multiple, RDBMSs or whatever type of system you have, like Mongo or whatever, or key value pairs or NoSQL, whatever it is. You have to have multiple instances of that for every service in your organization. And that to me was like, it was mind blowing when I first heard that, because it was like, but no one does that. Everybody releases the data model together, and you write your DDL, in a shared, project. So whether this is going to work long term, we'll see. But this is certainly will make it easier for you to make changes when your tables and your other relational data are loosely coupled from one another at that physical data model layer. So let me stop there. Any questions as I was talking, or?
Yeah, so there's a question from John Melanson. Which technical learning resources would you recommend for microservices?
Oh, I'm gonna send you a link. There's one I use for this presentation. If you have an account with Safari Books Online, they have these things to call super streams. So they'll pick a topic and they'll share your best resources for that topic. So I'm gonna share that as an action item real quick. And it's a bunch of resources. There's books in there, there's videos. I think Safari Books Online is probably like $20 a month or something like that, but it's worth it, man. They have everything. O'Reilly is one of the best publishers in the world, probably next to Manning, for technical content. So I'll send you guys a link about it, and it was very helpful for me getting up to speed and actually even trying some microservice implementations out. So I'll send that after the meeting or when we get to the formal Q&A.
And then there's another question from Iori. What do you think about some of the new schema registry services for APIs and things like that, which provide a reference for systems?
Yeah, so are we talking about like a service registry or something like that? Is that what the person is asking? Like, like you can do service discovery, for example, and know what pieces of functionality are out there. Is that what the question was?
Yes.
So I don't know any specific ones that are available. I've seen a lot of homegrown stuff. I do know one of the things about service-oriented architecture. If you notice, I really haven't talked about it on purpose because microservices is not SOA, it's an implementation of SOA. But there's a bunch of vendors out there that have tools. I work for a company that wrote their own registry tool for service discovery. So I don't have one here in particular, but if you have one, share it. Otherwise, I can follow up after the meeting, and I can send you guys a link of some options I found out on the web.
Okay, and there's another question a couple more questions. One from Robert first. How do you manage data access permissions that persist between services?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this is where the cloud helps. So if you have cloud providers like AWS or GCP or Azure, some of those things are just baked in, right? That you can bake in, use like, for example, for AWS Identity Access Manager. It makes it easier for you to provision resources. So as you put roles basically on your different services or your pieces of your application, it makes it easier to manage. So unless you build your own homegrown thing, I think that's where public cloud really shines. That pretty much makes that seamless, in my opinion.
Okay. Another question. Doesn't the encapsulation help to provide security across the services?
That's a good question. So, I would say like there's like 3 A's, right? Authentication, authorization, and accounting, right? Authentication is can I get to this system, like, right? Who can get access? Authorization is what can I do, and accounting is logging. We're going to talk about accounting specifically. But what I've seen in the past, as far as design patterns that really work, is you would have a microservice that basically allows you to authenticate. Say a user comes in, or a service is trying to communicate with something else. Using tokens really helps, like JWT tokens, JavaScript web tokens, or something like that, where you basically, someone logs in, they log into the system gives them back a token, and then that token is passed out through each system as it goes through. And then as those services are running, they're saying, hey, can this person do this based on the token? And it'll hit like the LDAP system or whatever. I think having a microservice that just deals with authentication and authorization, I think will make it easier so that as you pass that token around to her other services, it makes it seamless for the application of users to hit different systems.
Last question from John Monson. Other than secure coding practices, what are some third-party tools commonly used to validate microservices security?
Oh man, that's a good question. I do not know a lot. I know I'm gonna talk a little about this a little bit later about SecOps and SecOps security operations. I think, kind of stealing my own thunder here. You need to have dynamic and static scans. I forget off the top of my head some of the tools I've used in the past, but that's not actually for me. I can get a list for you as well. But there's a bunch of stuff out there.
Yeah,
And it's pretty much like turnkey. You don't have to just enable it like if you, for example, are a Java shop, you basically update your POM file if you're using Maven or if you're using some other thing. You basically can just plug it in, it just works. But someone had a thought who knows about this?
Yeah, in addition to that, there are a couple of systems that are really pluggable with microservices. It's identity and access management services. So those ones coupled with protocols like RBAC, things that plug into microservices to ensure security of microservices. They're sort of external components, but microservices are built in a way that they are secure. They expose one single API, and those tools sort of validate access and authentication, and they are just pluggable in it. So microservices usually have one single responsibility, which is to do what they're supposed to do. And also another thing is you can actually build a microservice that is just has one sole responsibility of security of other microservices. So like you said, there are a couple of ways to do that.
Right. Yeah, I'll see if I can find some like best practices, like either open source, or like him was saying, like IAM is built into AWS. But I'll send you guys a couple of options of things I've seen out there. I've worked with in the past that serve like that cross-cutting concern for security. It's a good question.
And then I have one more. Sorry, and then we'll take this last one and let you continue with the presentation. From Armando, in a connected world, is there a microservice model to share a UI among disparate domains?
Ooh, that's a good. My answer would be no. If you find it, send it to me. Because UI, in my opinion, this probably a soapbox for me, is like the wild, wild west, especially the JavaScript world, and stuff just doesn't work well together. And to me, that's where web services and other pieces help integrate these systems that weren't meant to talk to each other. But I have not seen a UI solution that I can build any UI I want, like a .NET app or an Angular app or Ember.js, and it just works. So if you find it, you let me know. Maybe that's Elizabeth one of the next presentations, a UI system that talks to any UI.
In the chat, ARA provided a solution. She said Lightning Design System is kind of like that.
I haven't heard of that.
Compatible UI.
Lightning.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Sarah, I'll let you
Last
continue.
Okay. And then anatomy of a web service. I'm sorry, excuse me, of a microservice. There are a few aspects. So some of these things like sound obvious to you developers, people who are front and back end developers, but sometimes I think we don't really appreciate the things that are required to manage microservices. But the first thing is issue tracking. If you don't have a system like Jira or some other ones out there that every change you're tracking, where you have acceptance criteria documented, who's working on it, when it was delivered, there's a system of record of what happened, it's associated with the commits that were made in that change, you will die. It won't work. And issue tracking system should be integrated with the service management system, or it should be the same tool. We talked about seamless flow, right? Between product development and production or operations, they need to be talking to each other. And every change the developer makes, every change, even if it's a testing change, playing around, that should be associated with the ticket. Otherwise, you're not going to know who did what when, and it's going to be difficult for you to really manage your system. So this is, again, a requirement for a microservice. Distributed version control, everybody knows about Git. If you're not using Git or some other distributed revision management system, I don't know what you're doing. Having changes be merged in properly, managing them for small pieces of changes and knowing who did what when is critical. It's your system of record for any software change. Without it, I don't know how you're doing. Again, some of these things seem obvious, but years ago when I learned Git and stuff like that, people didn't use it. There's some companies. One horror story. Sorry, I got to say this. One horror story. I'm not gonna say what company it was. I heard it was a company I worked for, but someone else had told me. This developer worked on this solution, some piece of Java code or whatever, and it was critical to the business. So the dude left the company, and this is like maybe 5-10 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. Dude left the company, and they wiped his laptop off. Well, no one knew that he was pushing code from his computer, and he never put it in like the revision management system. So anytime they had to make a change to the system, they had to write around his code to make a change because it was so important. Like that's real stuff that this is multi-billion-dollar companies this stuff happens in. So today it seems obvious. If you see someone doing it, you need to call it out because every change needs to be documented and managed somewhere, again, in some distributed version control system. You need a CI server, continuous integration, something that when you check in code, it runs a bunch of validation checks, unit tests, automated integration test cases, automated acceptance test cases, security operations. All these things need to be checked before software is pushed to environments. Otherwise, the quality of your software is going to come into question, and you will not be able to manage microservices properly. Fourth is binary repository manager. So this is something like an artifactory, right? So once the CI server runs, it pushes code to some other server, where now you have a version of your binary package software. Again, critical. But I've seen it where like I've worked on sometimes my own startups and little side projects where when I get started, for example, like I was working on like an IoT project, right? And I had it tied to my Git repo. So I basically would just install Git on my Raspberry Pi and it would, pull down the branches and I would do that. Well, in a real production environment, that is not a good thing. You should always be pushing code to your systems and your services, not pulling them down. And the reason why that's important is because you hear developers always say, well, it worked on my machine. Well, if you don't have this in a binary repository manager, whatever it is, you're not gonna survive. Continuous deployment, need to have ability to basically push software, I kind of just mentioned that, to these systems in a very consistent way, whether it's test or production. And you also need to make sure everybody can't do it. Only certain people can push to production. So having security on this is actually very critical. Automated provisioning of test and production environments. I'm not saying this needs to be virtual machines either. You need to basically just have some ability. So if developers need to stand up an environment, they click a button and they can just go along their merry way. If you don't have that, getting changes out the door will be very difficult. And then lastly, vertical deployments of the service, which basically means I should be able to deploy and not service everything at once, or even individual components. So if I have to change this to my UI, I should be able to run some CI/CD pipeline where it makes those changes, versions things properly, and then promotes them to various environments. So again, without this list, as far as the anatomy, I think you don't have a microservice, in my opinion. I would debate that with anybody, but this is obvious to some people, but maybe not to others. All right, so before I jump to use cases, any questions about the anatomy piece? Agree, disagree? What would you add to this list? Did I miss anything as far as the anatomy? Nothing?
No, you're good to go.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about a use case. Go ahead and just take a few moments to read this use case. I'm not going to read it for you, and then I'll just kind of talk through it. So I'll give you about 20 seconds to read through it. All right, that's enough time, I think. You guys read it, hopefully. Okay, all right. So what this is saying is I have an existing 3 systems and they have their own billing and payment system. By the way, this is actually a real use case. I just changed the industry. I changed all the names, but this is a really thing that has actually really happened in my career. And so, companies do want to save money and not, repeat yourself, right? One of the things in coding is dry, do not repeat yourself, right? There's no reason why, in this case, a billing and payment system should be different for every product that you're selling to your customers. So you want to break this down so that this is a reusable service that these other systems can plug and play into. It probably could be debatable that even these 3 different stacks can be one. So, managing the positions of your, stocks or your bonds and your mutual funds, maybe that should be all one application. I don't know. That's probably debatable too. But just for this case, we're trying to focus on billing and payments. So this is an example of how I would do it. I'm painting a lot of broad strokes. I'm not going to explain every single thing happening into this solution, but it's like a Microsoft Azure system topology, where if you were to break it down, I see 4 different teams that are internal with the company managing the solution. Maybe they manage more than one, but ultimately these stacks should be their own. You have your own stock trading platform, your own bonds trading platform, your own mutual funds, and ultimately you have billing and payments. And from soup to nuts, the service tier, in this case, business tier, SQL Server layer should be managed by one team, right? Not everybody doing this. And then when the calls come in from these other systems, they should be sending payloads in so that things are priced accordingly for how much the shares are for Apple, or how much it is to buy this, S&P 500 index fund, whatever. The request should change, but the service itself should be very cohesive in what it's doing. It's simply charging customers and then ultimately integrating with third-party systems like a bank or a credit card company to actually persist the transaction to charge the customer in question. So this is like an example, and it's you see why, if you're a startup, this doesn't make a lot of sense because you're having to add all these layers. So again, I mean, if you want to do this as a startup, it's fine, but to me, your goal should be getting the product out the door. But if you're an existing organization, you have lots of customers, this is a must. And without this, you will not be able to scale your business appropriately down the road. Any questions about this example? Or move to the next?
Yeah, one question. So which criteria do you follow here? Are you breaking the services down by domain?
Yeah, so I'm saying in this case, you already have the 3 existing trading platforms, so that's legacy, right? We're not going to solve that problem. But what I did was I took the code out of these systems. They had their own billing and payments system, this bottom thing down here. So this guy had billing and payments. He had billing and payments in bonds, billing and payments in mutual funds. But I broke it out so that you have one billing and payment system that's managed by one team that will take in the transaction of a stock, bond, or mutual fund. So the key to focus on is this last spot.
Got it. Thank you.
Were those 4 different microservices?
That's correct. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So
I see your eyebrows going up. See, that's how this is like the illumination part for me, right? I didn't get it. Like, it took me a while to get my head around it, but this is what microservices is about.
So there is one question though, and the question is, how are they communicating? Is there another service?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't very clear. So basically, these arrows are here. I'm sorry, you're very faint. My apologies. So the web request comes in, maybe a customer's on the UI, the website. They come in through the internet, hit the load balancer, and it goes to some, app server, web server, whatever that, you can pull down those web pages and do some things on it. They ultimately call their internal business tier. And then inside these business tiers here, each one of these business tiers makes a call back out, to the intranet, and they hit this web service on the billing and payment system, right? So that's their interface. Maybe it's a RESTful endpoint, maybe it's SOAP, I don't know what it is. But ultimately, they're hitting this web service tier, using some kind of protocol. And then it then encapsulates all its business logic and what it's doing at the lower levels. Does that make sense, Henry?
Yep, thank you.
I have so many reactions to this. I've been very quiet up until this point because I was waiting for a schema or to pop up. But
yeah.
Given what you've said about like the 3 tiers,
yes,
like with middleware, the UI,
yep.
And given that we're talking about communication between like siloed departments,
yep.
and responsibilities, you said that you were tasked with doing this. So like where would the communication come in where other departments are being pulled in? I'm just speaking from product
Yeah,
manager
yeah.
hat over here.
And
Sorry.
Can I go back a little bit? Let me go back.
Mhm.
What's your name, by the way? What's your name?
Oh, Nita St. Hilaire.
Let me go back a couple of slides if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I talked about domain-driven design, right?
Mhm.
This is where business architecture and IT architecture meet each other. So you have to, and this is really not your job, in my opinion. This is more senior leadership's job. They have to organize the products and services in a way that makes sense for that business. The developer is not going to have that knowledge, right?
Right.
So when you say the word silo, I don't like that word because that's how businesses function.
Right.
However, that service should certainly be cohesive and have a bounded context, clear language. So when I'm talking about this thing, everybody knows what it is. And if I was talking across that department or that service, other folks know what I'm talking about, right? So this is more of an organizational problem than it is a technical one. So if your organization is not, making sure business and IT architecture are aligned, you will not survive. And you're right. I'm gonna make a change over here nobody knows about. Oh, that went in production. No one told us, and you broke something for a customer, right? So that's an organizational issue then to me on developers or technical folks. So
Okay.
does that help answer?
It does. I mean, I was just speaking more so to like in the context of microservices, and going back to the slide previously, the previous slide to this one, where you're talking about like the next one, the
this one. Sorry.
Wait, forward. Stop. Okay, so you're the layers of the 3-tier technology architecture,
okay. Yes.
right? So yes, we know things are siloed, but in terms of like those different pieces that need to communicate with each other, right? You outlined 3 core lines of business.
Yep.
So you have the line of business, and then you have the departments that have dependencies on these pieces, on these different moving parts, right?
Right.
So in the context of microservice specifically, I guess the question that I'm trying to ask is future thinking, forward thinking as a resolution, like part of the solution would be, like, what do you recommend as part of the solution when you're presented with something like this? Like, what does that look like when we're coming up with the 3 tiers that feed into this and all those departments that would be responsible for it? How would you present that? Is that like a meeting of the minds where everyone comes together and they say, okay, as the person that's in charge of marketing, this is what I want it to do. This is like the end result of what I wanted to do. And from a technological perspective, they can't articulate that. And then with new technologies that are coming in and new mechanisms that are coming in that allow for all these APIs and these different pieces to communicate with each other, what does that look like? Does that fall on you as I know it doesn't fall on you as a developer, but what would you recommend?
So
would you still recommend what you presented?
Yeah, I would. And so I think there's actually I have strategic enablers, and I have operational enablers. The operational enabler in here is dependency management. So to me, as you're building out new functionality, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I apologize if you asked the question, so I want to answer it.
Sorry.
You have to have systems in place, like say your issue tracking system is one place, where when you identify, say you're agile and you have epics, right? You need to know what the features of that epic is and how those features are dependent upon other features. So again, that's an organizational thing. And if you're not documenting that issue tracking system, you won't be successful. So someone's going to make a change over here and this person never knows about it. So again, that's executive leadership directors' responsibilities to make sure that folks are communicating across different lines of business. If there are interdependent, business functions and impacts multiple departments, there has to be a process in place to make that happen. So whether it's a team of people that do nothing but business mapping context, I don't know, but it's somebody's responsibility to make sure that you're talking across features. And I'm gonna get to that a little bit when you see that operational enabler, and that may help, I think, help answer a little bit. So.
Yeah.
All right. right, let me keep going. All right, so this is, so there's another question, Elizabeth, or can I move on?
Yeah, there's a question. One from Smith. How much of the layers can be offloaded to pre-existing third-party services? Does that break the ownership paradigm?
Yes.
Very good
Yeah.
question.
Yes. Yeah, I would not recommend that. So like in this case, like I'm not a bank, right? The bank is the bank. So that's what they do, or credit card company. But if I'm inside the organization or something, to me, I would not delegate that unless that was a piece of functionality that this third party could own totally, right? And you could make that a service, that's totally fine. And my second use case, you'll see some of that. But my recommendation is if it's in-house, keep it in-house. If you're going to send it out-house, it's in all of it, and trust that vendor is going to manage that for you. That's the only answer I can give you. I would not recommend that. If there's not a clear delineation of responsibilities from a business function perspective, I would not personally. I would not recommend that.
Yeah. I think in addition to that, anything that is really core to the business should be in-house.
Facts.
In theory.
Theory, right. That's true. Yep, I agree with Henry. All right.
Let's see.
Let me go to this next one real quick. So spend a few moments reading this second use case.
Go ahead.
All right, you guys got it? Okay. All right, here's the design. Sorry for the colors. I didn't know how to do this right. So anyway, so this is, we're not gonna talk about every single box on this system, but one of the things I want to point out is that there's no UI. This is all either batch or orchestration, and it's still a microservice. So you don't have to, it's based on the business function we're talking about, or that service in question, that will determine what that service is. In this case, it's a tax system, right? I want to pay, capital gains or dividends or whatever it is. And there's different ways to talk to the system. Like I think somebody mentioned, I want to learn about, orchestration around message buses, right? I could have, immutable, Kafka topics where the client creates a Kafka message, publishes it to that queue, and then I drain that queue to this Kafka consumer inside this service. So everything inside this purple is part of the microservices owned by one team, and they're exposing interfaces to other teams to orchestrate that business functionality. Maybe there's also batch processing, that somebody drops a file off once a day or something, and this thing picks up and look for it, and it then processes it, right? Using Spring Batch or something. Maybe I expose a web service API so people can get information about the system. Maybe it's like a read-only API, but they want to inquire about, okay, well, how much taxes did Larry pay on that? And they can have an operation to come into it. But everything is still encapsulated by one team. They own the database, they own the business logic layer, and also the middleware as well. But then again, you're not the IRS, you got to pay money to the IRS. So they own their own system, right? They own Caesar. Has nothing to do with the company. They're just, almost like a proxy service to actually do the actual transaction, over the internet, for example. So again, it's the team has to own the solution from soup to nuts, and it doesn't have to have a UI. Man, it doesn't even have a database, really. I mean, it depends on what the solution is. So this is like an example I want to provide as well, just to get you guys thinking about, it's not just all three layers, it's whatever that business function or service is required. So, does that make sense? Maybe?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well.
You always need a database.
That's accurate.
I'm not taking that bait.
So Larry, I have one question though. So at the top of my head, I expected Kafka to be out of the microservice, to be like a backbone communicator.
Right.
So did I get the case? I mean the example not? Did I not get it well? Like why is Kafka part of the microservice? Sorry for the.
So it's in my opinion, right? You're sending me data. You're telling me to do something, right? It's my queue. It's my queue. Right? It's not yours. Now you write the client code, whether it's Python, Java, or script, to publish the message. Right? As a client, these are all clients. But as a server, I own that. That queue is like a server. Yeah, that's mine. Don't touch it.
I have a question about the Kafka thing.
Yeah.
Is it like some kind of system where it has like threads and you have like different threads doing different processes?
Yeah. So Kafka's like what's called a pub sub solution. So you basically, if you ever heard like the consumer producer pattern in coding, some piece of code is producing some work to be done, and then something's going to pick it up in an asynchronous way, right? So you're decoupling the producing of the message from the consuming of it, right? You go do something. You don't know when it's going to get done, how it's going to get done, but that system's going to pick up that solution. So you're decoupling the request and the actual response, right? So you fire, you forget. And yes, Kafka, you can have multiple consumers that are like, based on how you can have 1,000 consumers, basically you're like a high transaction organization. Maybe you got 2 consumers based on how much data, how fast the streaming is coming in. You have a variety of options in that regard. But yeah, it's typically a multi-threaded application and how it processes data.
Okay.
Yeah, this is cool.
And really, a technical term is really a Kafka topic, but whatever. I'm saying Q to kind of make it more understandable. That answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hey, Larry, this is Shan. Quick question.
Dude.
So when you're doing microservices, how does jars come into play with that? When you have common code across the three services in the last example that you used, use case that you used, how do you incorporate utilizing jars in that situation?
Yeah, so to explain to everybody what a jar is, a jar is a Java archive. So when you're creating Java code, like source code, actually writing codes in an IDE or some editor, you compile that code into bytecode, and it creates a thing called a jar file. It's just an executable that runs on a system that like a JVM, for example. And you'll kick it off. So in this case, like let's say, Shan, that Spring Batch is a Java application. So it has jars and it has other dependencies as well. This Spring Batch application would be a jar file that I build through my CI server, and then my CI server will push it in some binary repository like Artifactory, and then that system, however I provisioned it down, you'll push your deployment process. You'll push that jar to that system. So you're managing the jar for that service. So a service could have 1 jar, 1,000 jars, but you would, within that service, manage those jars as independent build processes, that feeds into the overall CI/CD process. Does that help, Shan, or did I make it more confusing?
No, I follow you. Appreciate it.
I don't want to hijack the conversation, but I saw ETL on here and you put Spring Batch, and like I see this, and the questions that come up for me are around new ETL services, like new services that are more, I guess, the new age that lean towards like the DevOps.
You mean
not even like a Hadoop, more of like a NIME, an Alteryx,
I've heard of
a Fivetran, a Segment, because
I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, because they mitigate a lot of these pieces. So like that's really like the next question. So is microservices going in that direction where they're utilizing these newer technologies to solve for a lot of these back-end processes?
It's needed,
Sorry
right?
to jump. Yes.
Okay. Well, that is interesting. I know because what you're getting at really is these vendor products have their own management of these things, right? Just like SSIS with Microsoft, and it makes it really weird to manage it. In my opinion, if you decide to use that, I would just say your CI/CD needs to use their process. You know what I mean? I mean, you can't use typical open source because it's a vendor product. So if their product, in my opinion, doesn't have CI/CD built in natively, I would question using it, because you're going to deploy something and no one has any idea what's running in production. They don't know what version it is, you know, and they create these weird files that you don't really understand. You know what I'm saying? Their own little special binary stuff. So I think that stack, that vendor stack, needs to have CI/CD built into it natively, or it should be able to be plugged into something existing to make it work. Otherwise, you're gonna be putting code in production and have no idea what's running. So yeah, I mean, use them if you have to, but you know, you need to make sure that process can be managed through, you know, revision management and all that as well. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So moving on, this is my last couple of slides. We're gonna talk. I'm not gonna talk about these in detail. I'm just gonna kind of brush over them because Elizabeth, these are separate topics we can probably address in a future meeting. Each one of these is a separate topic. So I'm just gonna kind of go over them because I don't want to talk about them in too much detail. And I'll share my slide deck out as well so you guys can read up later if you want to see all this, my notes and everything. Microservices, the operational enablers. These are the required ones. In the next slide, we're going to talk about the optional ones, in my humble opinion. So you may disagree, but this is what I think, and I'm running the meeting, so I can say what I want. So these are the required ones. Automated testing is a must. I have worked in places, not going to say any names, where there was 0% code coverage, and no one knew what was happening, and we crossed our fingers that it was going to work. Like, that is bad, dude. Like, so if developers don't want to do unit testing, you fire them. Because they're gonna destroy your business. DevOps is an important part. Again, we talked about CI/CD already. It's a must. SecOps is a must. Dynamic and static scans. If there are other things we talked about, like Henry Mission IAM or other pluggable solutions to do AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. PM dependency management. I think that was you needed to talk about that. Is a must. It needs to be baked into your Jira system or whatever issue tracking system you use, so that teams and organizations and lines of business can communicate. Otherwise, you're going to push things out and no one's going to know what the left hand and the right hand is doing. Data sharing and consistency, which is really cool. So there are times where you want to inquire. So even if you're orchestrated to do some work, you want to basically ask that system before you tell them to do something. Well, what's the state of your system? It's okay to open up shared caches or web service interfaces so that someone can know the state of something before they maybe ask you to do something, meaning the systems or the actors or whatever. Log aggregation, logging is important. Logging in your app, if you're not doing logging, you are not going to survive. Just telling you, you're not gonna know what's going on. And we'll talk about the next slide of the optional one, but you need to be having logging in your system. There's a log aggregator in AWS called CloudWatch. You can run all kind of analytic and queries on it. Once you log, you have to put that data somewhere. I also like, what's the other one? Splunk. Splunk is pretty good too. The Elk Stack is good. You know, Elastic Cache. What is it? Elasticsearch, Log Cache, and Kibana. There's a bunch of stuff out there, man. But you got to log first. So logging is part of almost every programming language that I know. So it's developer 101. Private and public cloud tech is, I think, a must. You know, the ability, you notice I didn't say virtualization, and we'll say, I'm leaving that as an optional thing, because you can have a public and private cloud and everything is physical hardware. It's going to be expensive, but you still can do it. It needs to be just basically where a developer can click a button and they get a bunch of test servers, or, you know, can get production stood up or whatever, or scale production. You need to have a PaaS solution to do that. And then business orchestration, again, to me, is the tie that binds Nita. You have to have an ability to communicate across different systems so that work can be performed. Or maybe I already said that, sorry. Orchestrate across multiple systems so that you can ask something to do some more work that your system is not responsible for. I think that is the tie that binds microservices together, and without it, it's going to be difficult to be successful. The optional enablers are virtualization, which we all know, right? I got physical hardware. I want to cut out some logical hardware. That's a must because it's a optional, but it's a must if you want to save money. Containerization, you know, I didn't talk about Docker tonight, but Docker is a thing. And so containerization, to me, in my opinion, is optional because cloud providers are making it really hard to use Docker. They want to tie you to their system. So they're like, yeah, Docker's cool, but we're going to charge you $1,000 more per hour. Like, really? So Yeah, it's it's hard to do it. So again, I made it optional with the organization I set up to do so. Then I'm saying technical orchestration too. You know, things like a message bus or whatever is important to ensure that you can receive messages from multiple systems. And then logging, and this is kind of related together, logging and business KPI reporting. So as you log data, you should be able to measure how your business is doing and also how your technology is doing. Is your system healthy? Is it having problems? Logging is that gateway to be able to do KPIs properly. The serverless computing. So there's a solution called Terraform that, because I'm always like in AWS Lambda, it's really cool, but it's like, it's hard to manage the code with it. It's very weird. It's not like that SSIS thing we talked about, or a vendor product that ties you to deploying stuff through their way. Well, Terraform is a way, I think, I haven't used it personally, but it's a way to use kind of cloud solutions that's kind of agnostic in nature. So you can write, I think, a Terraform script for something that can deploy to AWS or GCP or Azure or something else. And this is kind of related to serverless computing as well, is functions as a service, right? So ability to have code that, and this is where AWS is trying to take our jobs, developers. They want to have it where you can just click a button and like they already took away the infrastructure jobs, right? If you're a network admin, a sysadmin, you're in trouble right now. You work for AWS or somebody else, you're in trouble. They try to take our coding jobs, right? So that I can deploy some machine learning algorithm or some service with a click of a button. It is an optional thing, but I just feel like FAS is like still kind of coming on board. I do believe in functional programming for certain, and breaking down business functionality to very composite functions that you can build upon other things. But again, to me, it's an optional thing because there's a lot of challenges to make that happen. So that's it. Like it's like 9, I don't know what time it is. Is it 9:29, 21? I'm done talking. I want you guys to ask questions. I have some references on here too as well. And I'll share my slide deck with you, Elizabeth, and share it out to the group or whatever. But that's all I have formally. Are there any formal QA questions that I can answer or we can chat about?
Thank you so much, Larry. Does anyone have any questions right now?
Yeah, thank you very much, Larry. So here's one question. What are the challenges that you usually face when you're trying to set up microservices?
The challenges are the dependencies. That's the issue.
Oh, yeah.
It's when you're dealing with a legacy system, like, I mean, all this sounds really great. I'm talking about cotton candy and cupcakes. It sounds really cool, but this is hard. This is not easy. This takes a great deal of discipline and patience to scale it out properly, because everybody has an opinionated how we do microservices and all this other stuff. So it's to me, in my opinion, it's a marathon, not a sprint. The objective is not to say, are we doing microservices right or not? It's saying, how can we move toward this as a strategic advantage against our competitors? Because if you're not doing it, I would say in 10 or 15 years, and you don't have discrete components that can be built to a larger composite system, you're going to be like the brick and mortar organizations of the tech world, Yeah. So I think it's something you should transition to, but take your time to do it. Mature your organization, educate your leadership, educate your teams, so they understand, first of all, what it is, right? Getting everyone on the same page, and then having strategic, ways we can kind of, march there in smaller steps in the long term.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Relating to piggybacking off Henry's question. So, so I've had previous experience having to do microservices, not even realizing I was doing microservices.
Right, exactly. I know that feeling.
So my question to you is there something you would propose as like a coalition or a manifesto, something that's like a collective, where whether you're an undergrad or whether you're out in the field and you're working, that this could, so it's relatable, so that everybody understands all across the board that, hey, if you have a legacy system, or someone posted in here that they have a startup and it doesn't apply to them, I completely disagree. I'm like the huge advocate for like build right out the gate, maybe if it was more widely known that this is microservices and that colleges and boot camps are teaching all across the board, so like everyone's on the same page, so not we're not coming into these situations where it's like absolute chaos and we're trying to stitch and fix things.
Yeah.
Do you know of any organizations that do this?
I do not, unfortunately. And I'll say one of the problems, like I feel, in my opinion, this is my soapbox. I'm gonna get back to the thing in a second. I'm getting on soapbox and get off. Okay.
Yes.
IT in the 90s had a great opportunity to really be a good industry, to provide disciplined people that really solve real problems and applied engineering principles, right? So if I want to be an engineer to build a building, like I gotta get a certification, I gotta have my degree. It's a lot of discipline to make sure my craft is good. But what happened is, to the language, they bastardized IT, and it made it commoditize all of us. And we're just number on a spreadsheet. And we, every other year, it's a marketing term that comes out, everybody jumps on, and no one understands it. It's like SOA, right? SOA became about ESB, and it's so much bigger than that, right? I feel like data science is another opportunity where we're gonna actually have a real industry. I'm hoping it's a real industry someday, right?
But no, it is. It is.
You know, so I guess I'm saying is that microservices may just turn out to be another SOA. You know, that somebody builds a product that convinces some executive leadership is not educated enough to know what it is, and they tell everybody to go do it, and everyone's like pissed off because they don't know what they're doing, right? So
also,
but I'm a little pessimistic. I apologize.
No, it's expensive.
Also, partly why I asked you that question, Larry, about what your challenges are, because I have my own. The thing is, really, it's, I mean, with relation to our question, it's like, really, undergrad, out of college, you're really not going to get into big systems firsthand. You're going to start with probably a small Android application or a small desktop application. Microservices are just not applicable for that. So you get into experience and places where they use microservices when you work like for a big company, or at least a startup that is looking at a big future. So I guess partly that's why you really don't find it as something very, very well known. Also, to Larry's point, the dependencies are huge. There are so many.
I used to work for Capgemini, and I can tell you right now, they don't do it. And they have 250,000 employees. Wow. And it ends up being someone coming out of undergrad, someone being an architect, and they have these scopes. They're like, this is in scope, this is out of scope. We want to squeeze them for more services. And they're not really deploying these things the way they're supposed to be deployed. So if there was a council that said, okay, we all agree, we got product owners, we got developers, we got everyone to the table and collectively agree that this is what it is, and everyone uses this, it would mitigate a lot of these issues. And not to mention, everything is going serverless because serverless is prepping us for quantum. So like all of this is binary, right? We got to now get prepared for quantum, and quantum is right around the corner. So like, how are we gonna, right? So the cycle continues. I
would say, if I put my business in the universe, maybe answering a different way, is that developers should have an appreciation for their craft. And again, I would recommend reading Pragmatic Programmer. They have a 20th edition which came out in 2019. That's a must for any college graduate or experienced professional. I would encourage you to read the Phoenix Project and the DevOps Handbook. There's another book I like called Smart Enough Systems. It's really good. Actually, it's really good read too. I had one more, but I'll send a list after the meeting. But I think not just focusing on coding all the time and Docker and all the tech stuff. Software is a philosophy. People don't think about it. It's a way of thinking. I'm about you when you guys had your first programming language. I had Pascal, and I sucked at it because I didn't know how to think like a computer and make it understand something that I understood. And so to me, software is an engineering discipline, but it's also an artistic discipline too as well. So I feel that we need to go deeper in our appreciation for our craft. And I think that's a way that we start pushing back and we start educating our leadership on making better decisions. That's my opinion.
Awesome. So there's a couple questions regarding legacy systems. So how do you bridge like, legacy systems with microservices? I already mentioned that there's a lot of companies, especially governments, using, you know, old systems, I used to work for the government, so I'm quite aware of these things. So, Larry, do you want to talk?
Let's first of all define what legacy system is. Legacy doesn't always mean mainframe. I wrote an Angular JS app years ago. That's legacy because now you have Angular, right? So we need to be understanding that legacy basically means it's technical debt. It's stuff you have to support that has been developed already, it's running in production, because we all know the cost of supporting software are greater once it's in production. It's actually cheap to get it out, but to manage it is sometimes 10x the cost, if not more. So I just think you just have to be in the mind of always innovating. And to me, there are times where legacy makes sense maybe for an organization. I mean, legacy in terms of like mainframe makes sense. I don't know what businesses they're in. Mainframe is expensive, I'll tell you that, because no one codes in COBOL anymore or PL1. I should say no one, not a lot of people anymore, right? Because universities are teaching different languages out of college. So I just think it's just having that mindset of always moving forward, getting better, and teaching people that refactoring is not a bad thing. Refactoring is great. It's a good thing. It means you're getting better. So just because someone wrote something 2 years ago and it's great, it may not be meeting the need of the business today. You got to refactor, and that's okay. So that would be how I would answer it.
So here's my experience with regards to that. I work at Mass Mutual. It's like insurance. When I talk about insurance, big legacy systems. So we do have a couple of them, but I think the plan was for any newer systems, we gave them a microservices architecture. And then first of all, we managed the legacy systems as a one huge service. So then we kept on. Yes, so like one huge service that's already existed. Then any newer systems, we broke them down into domain-specific microservices. And that's how we structured it for a start. Then after that, when you have time, you keep on breaking little pieces of the monolith into microservices. So it takes time, over years, maybe 3-4 years. That's how you chunk it up.
I would argue here it takes longer than that. I mean, I worked at one place where, let's be honest, let's talk about this word, digital transformation. We've been hearing this for like 10 years. Well, when is it going to happen, right? So I worked at a company once, I'm not going to say the name. They had this server, and they were like, we're moving like a new building. And there was a server that's plugged into someone's desk, and it actually ran production code. They were scared to unplug it. No one knew what it did. That's real stories, man. So it sounds easy that you want to do these things, but there's so much to the business. If I stop making money because I unplug the server, that's a problem. Like, that's not cool. So
absolutely, yeah.
I think it takes more than 3 to 4 years. I think it just takes.
Yeah, you're right. We're still doing it. We are not done. So
software's never done, right?
This is Robert. I come from a little bit different background. I come from healthcare, and you go into, like, I'm a consultant. You go into a place, you try to tell them about microservices, and they are like, "What does that do for me?" Like, they want to know what the business benefit is.
Yep.
Facts.
Yep. And so what I end up finding out is that what they really don't usually have an appetite for, but what they do have an appetite for are what I like to call satellite services. So they have their big monolith in the middle, and then kind of like what the guy was saying earlier about anything that's new, those are services. And the real thing is anything that we know that any server that we don't want to unplug because we don't know what it does and it might break, that stays still. And then anything new, we talk to that big clunky thing. Right.
That's good. That's really insightful. I like that.
1,000% accurate.
Satellite service. I like that term. Is that your term or is that like a thing?
I don't know.
Love that. That's awesome.
Well, so Larry, I don't know if you want to stop sharing if your contact information is on there at all, or.
Yeah, I'll get my LinkedIn profile if you guys want to connect. I like to nerd out, so my friends know we write code on the side for fun. I'm always willing to network and do stuff and have fun. So yeah, reach out to me, even just to have a conversation, or if you're in Dallas and you're comfortable with getting out with COVID, we can meet for coffee or something. But
yeah, here's one question. Here's one question. Hello? Can
Sorry,
you hear
go
me?
ahead.
Yeah,
can hear you.
I stumbled upon this meeting. I was just looking, just browsing through LinkedIn. Do you guys set up these events many times, and how do I get linked up so that I can always join?
So right now, I will go ahead and put like our meetup page in the chat. So please feel free to join our meetup, Black Tech Link. And that way you
Okay,
can stay
thank you.
connected with our latest events. So next week we have another event coming up. It's diversity and inclusion in the life science industry. So if anyone's interested in learning more about biotech, biopharmaceuticals, bioengineering, life science, please feel free to join. We're doing this in partnership with Biocom. They're one of the largest trade associations of companies and professionals that that work and support companies in the life science industry. That's going to take place, I believe, Thursday, November 19th. It's I think a midday, like mid-afternoon event. So please mark your calendars. I'll put that on our LinkedIn page. So if you found the event in LinkedIn, we'll also have more events coming up. And then we'll also post this on the meetup page. We're on all social channels as well. Our website will be launched next month, so be sure to look out for that. Another thing, I saw that there were a couple of entrepreneurs in here. We are hosting a pitch competition in partnership with Nesby San Diego. And so that will take place Tuesday, December 8th. Right now, the applications are open for anyone that's interested. We do have like a seed prize of about $2,500 plus some amazing like resources and tools, software, compliments of the National Association of Women Business Owners, as well as the San Diego Black Chamber of Commerce. So please, go to, our meetup page. If you're an entrepreneur, sign up. We're in the process of reviewing applications. Again, thank you so much to Larry for hosting this workshop. This was really good. This was like our kickoff of our monthly one-on-one workshop series. Basically, we're doing like fundamental workshops each month to introduce new technologies, old technologies, business resources and tools to kind of help you guys in your career or your business. We're not going to do one next month because it's holiday season. But in January, we'll be hosting SaaS Sales 101. So anyone that's interested in, learning how to sell like SaaS products, please feel free to join. I believe that one will be like January 17th or January 14th. So thank you so much. If you like this, please visit me on LinkedIn. Find me Elizabeth Cotton. I love recommendations and all that good stuff. And then I'll also put my email in here in case you guys want to email me directly. Also, thank you so much to Built Los Angeles, Blacks United in Leading Technology. Thank you, John Melanson, who's the president of Built Los Angeles. And thank you so much for promoting this event. I love working with you. And then we have a couple more minutes. I don't know if anyone wants to, talk. There's like, 40 people. At one point, there were 60 people. I'm glad that this one-on-one workshop had a good kickoff. Let me get a quick picture.
I have if anybody if anybody knows the company that works with a company looking for software developers, please let me know. I've been looking for about a year now.
Awesome. I know, Larry, you said your company's hiring, correct?
Always looking for people. So, hit me up and let's chat. I didn't get your name. What's your name?
Lamar Red.
My middle name's Lamar. Good dude. Send me a LinkedIn message or something. Let's chat offline. Let's see if I can even help with other connections or whatever and what you're looking for. I know quite a few people, and maybe it's just finding the right opportunity for you. So let's connect and figure out something.
All right. Thanks.
Awesome. And then I also have
Yeah.
Brett. She had a
Hey,
question.
yeah, I have a question. Woo! Hey, this is cool. Thank you so much. I came late. I'm so sorry. Guys, this is fantastic. And I've been a part of Blacks in technology for many, many years, which of course now has morphed, into other stuff. And I'm very excited. But here's the question for you. My background is writing, copywriting. So I'm going to put my email in here. If anyone needs a copywriter, I have lots of experience. Okay. And
I need a copywriter. I always need a copywriter.
I'm going to put my email in here. Hit me up and let's talk. And then I can send you my digital portfolio and all that lovely stuff. So really, guys, let me know, okay? Because I am also, obviously, I'm looking for work. Such a lovely economy. What can I say, right? 75. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, so here's the question. The question is, let me put my name in there, right? So I'm a girl, so there you go. Okay. Are you gonna do any classes, maybe more towards the real, like the entrepreneur side and not just maybe working from a company? So I have another business called Petsadelic that I hard coded from scratch on Notepad. Yes, I did it. Thank you very much. And Google gave me a 98 out of 100 for mobile. Looks better on mobile. Anyway, are you going to have any classes like that? Maybe, more geared towards that, or?
Yeah. So for Black Tech Link, like our launch program was in August, which is National Black Business Month. We did a 30-day workshop series on just Black business, how to support Black businesses.
Cool.
Doing like a workshop every day that focused on business tools for entrepreneurs or highlighting Black businesses. We'll provide that information, those recordings later on. But we periodically do workshops on entrepreneurship. And I'll also provide some resources of some, of our partnering organizations.
That's
such
great.
as National Society of Black Engineers Entrepreneurship, as well as Black Entrepreneurs, Leaders and Learners. Brett, where are you located at, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in Valley Village near Studio City, Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, my sister.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So we're close then, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that area. But yeah, definitely will provide, more information regarding, those topics. We also have workshops and conferences that we partner with. Another one of those conferences that we partner with is called Career Mingle. One of the tracks was small business entrepreneurship and innovation.
Fantastic.
And that could be like a great resource for you as well.
That's great. Thank you.
I encourage you to check out our upcoming pitch competition, just a way to connect with some entrepreneurs as well. And then
thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Elizabeth.
And then Jay Giles requested more information on National Society of Black Engineers San Diego. So let me see. Is Brian Ware still in here? No. Cheating Harps. Okay, so I guess they had another meeting to jump off, but I could provide Jay Giles, if you provide your email, I can send you some more information and connect you with the president of National Society of Black Engineers. And it's not strictly a student organization. They do have a professionals chapter as well, supporting, professionals working in San Diego. Awesome.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Larry, thanks, man, for the presentation. And my question, I don't know, it's to Larry, I guess, first, but considering that there are other people here who seem to know quite a bit about the topic, feel free, to jump in if you have some information. So the question is basically and this is kind of relating to Brett's kind of interest as well, but if you're a startup and you have, let's say you're a technology-based startup and you're using AI type stuff on like large data. And, as one of the things I can gather from the presentation is that this is quite a broad scope, a lot of things, you can do in this, with microservices, and kind of where you start doesn't seem so obvious, especially I'm sure it depends on what you're doing as well. So for someone who's interested in AI applications on large data, and you're in a startup, what are there any specific products that you can say that might be good for something like situation like that? And where would you say a person should prioritize? Let's say if you're in a startup, you obviously can't start doing everything at once. So you might want to just zero in on some particular areas. So for startups, let's say maybe in the areas that I just mentioned, do you have some thoughts on what would be some good areas to zero in on?
Yeah, I'm a little biased, to be honest. What's your name again, by the way? What's your name?
Sorry, my name is Makai, but my first name is Kwaku, but I go by Makai.
All right, okay, Makai. I know I'm biased. Neither we agree, we disagree on this, and it's cool. So feel free to chime in. This is a meeting of minds that tech people are about. I've had startups before, okay, and my DevOps sucked. It was terrible, right? And spending a lot of time making your system testable and better when you have no customers, to me, it's not important. What's important is getting a product in front of someone to use. And if you have people buying your product, Makai, that's different, right? Then we can have that conversation. But the first question I would ask is, if no one's using your product or service, you need to get them using it and getting people paying for your stuff. Like, so if that's not a true or false, if that's not true, then I would focus on that. And if it is true, I would say where I would get started next is looking at making sure your code has testing in it, like actual unit test cases. Like, so as you're writing your machine learning algorithms, you need to make sure they're testable. And then once you get the testing stuff working, then figuring out how to get your code deployable to your production environment, whether that's AWS or something else. Because to me, without that testing part, even if you deploy stuff, you don't even know if it's working or not. So I would build a culture of automated testing first as your first next steps to be able to do microservices. And then from there, there's a bunch of things like operational enablers that you can do, and you can then determine what's appropriate after that.
But from the microservices perspective, where exactly? So those are things that would be done normally, let's say for these types of startups. But for the microservices specifically, which of those areas would you say?
That's what I'm saying. But unit testing is part of it. Like, it's not separate. Like, for you to be able to start looking at deploying things with confidence, and you don't have any test cases, I wouldn't even talk about breaking up your organization into very specific pieces of functionality, right? So if you have software that's running and working, first off, if you're a startup, it's like 2 or 3 of y'all anyway, right? It's not like you're a big organization. If I'm assuming you're that small. So having confidence in your software, knowing it's running every single, especially with machine learning, is running the same time every way, and you're getting the same results. If you don't have automated testing, you will not survive. And that's part of microservices enablement. That's what I'm saying. It's not separate. But that's my opinion. Others disagree or not.
Yeah, I do have some comments on that, just to add a little bit to Makai's question. So like when you're thinking about artificial intelligence systems, I think the first thing you have to think about is what is the frequency of updates that your models are actually able to get to? Because oftentimes when you're building AI, it has to process a lot of data before you can get the predictions. And so that creates some sort of delay, whereas some predictions might be available in real time. So that's something that you're going to have to consider within your microservices architecture. So I think if you start to think about, I think Kafka systems and using kind of like systems of orchestrating your data are some of the most important things that you have to do from an overall architecture perspective with AI.
So I agree with Ayori 1,000%. So when I say, so I don't believe that, I do agree with Larry in the sense that you don't need to have like a fully functioning microservices roadmap end to end, and this is how we're going to be structured out the gate. Yep. I do believe that there are components to it that have to be accounted for no matter what level and what stage you're in to alleviate any pitfalls in the future. And that starts with the architecture. So I also have a nonprofit. I also have a startup called 3 Indigo. And this is actually what we do. Like we try to make sure that when startups come or when small businesses are approaching their business, whether it's an e-com store or whether it's a tech-based product, that they're accounting for the architecture of how they're setting up out the gate, so that, let's say you scale very quickly and you start getting a whole bunch of clients, or you get one major client that you're servicing, and now you have to scale up your systems, and everything completely breaks. You can alleviate that by having the architecture done up front. And part of the architecture can be, all right, we know we're going to need these microservices somewhere along the lines, but at the minimum, let's start with this, so that way we can scale and it's become sustainable.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. Like his particular startup is an interesting one. So I guess first thing is what you have to know is what is your asset as a startup, and what I see from your idea seems to be that your data is your asset. So I think laying down an architecture that is kind of supports future microservices, or like a service-oriented architecture just at the beginning of it. And then I think that would help. I mean, even if you don't have to, like you're saying, you don't have to build it fully, but just structuring that in mind, that in future, if I'm to scale, this is how I could scale.
And I think one thing obvious too is that I personally don't think there's, like, at least in my opinion, a microservices handbook of like what to do in every scenario. Your business needs are going to be what is important to your business. So Makai, I think if you're a machine learning AI organization, you may have a different set of priorities for microservices in a new business banking app. So I think it just depends on your business capabilities, what your customer needs, and then that may teeter out what you want to do first. So I think there's no silver bullet answer to what you're asking for. We have to probably get out into the weeds of like, what are you exactly doing? And probably, just do some whiteboarding and some tech talk. So I mean, if you want to nerd out, we can always nerd out, bro. Reach out. Certainly welcome to do
it. I will. Thanks.
Uh-oh.
Well, we have about like 9 more minutes until our event concludes, but I definitely want to say thank you so much for everyone for joining. And you guys have any more questions? Give yourselves a round of applause for being on. I know for some people in the East Coast, it's like 11.
Right.
But I saw someone.
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast.
This is early.
Hassan, are you in Tokyo?
Yeah, actually, I'm in Tokyo. Yeah.
What time is it?
Wow.
Now it's midday. 1
Oh,
p.m.
okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's like,
There you go.
I'm good.
I'm using my lunchtime to join this meeting.
Wonderful.
That's so funny.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you, Larry, for this meeting. I really appreciate it.
I'm sorry about the lighting, guys. I'm telling you, it's not normally like this. My kids, I'm trying to teach them responsibility. We had this room called the think tank. You probably see it in the back. I come up here like before the presentation because Elizabeth's like, get on here before like 10 minutes. It's completely dark. I'm like, guys, there's no lights in here. So I'm like rushing, finding the ladder. I'm sweating. So I'm sorry. And I didn't see it until after the fact. I was like, oh. I got my parents texting me like, man, like you like in a prison, man. I'm like, God.
Oh man.
So I'm sorry about that. It looks normal, not like it's all this song. So
no, don't worry about it. I get it. I get it.
Where's your ring light?
Right, I have mine super bright. Right? It looks like daytime over here. So I know like we're all here like in this workshop, and I definitely want to provide more opportunities for us to actually get to know each other. So in January, on January 27th, we'll be hosting a speed networking using Hopin. I don't know if any of you guys have used that before, but if any of you guys have done speed networking, it's just like that. It's a really great platform. And that way you guys are able to connect with each other more intimately, and then, just connect. And so definitely want to use that time to do that. That will be on January 27th, and I'll provide more information about that in the upcoming weeks. So again, thank you again for joining. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. This recording will be provided at a later date. I will share when. I'm trying to like put all of this in an online learning management system as we go. Not make it completely free, but you know, like if you were here, you know, you got the content, but you know, afterwards, you know, you don't have to pay as you go. But again, thank you so much to everyone. And I look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Yeah, thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks.